Hi everyone. This is a very interesting conversation between me and Dave. We discuss many interesting things like being an indie developer, leaving a comfortable full-time job to actually just go full-time on building something, his journey of building so far and how it's been for him, and launching his first product on Product Hunt and how that was like, and a lot of other cool stuff. So you can also go to individual timestamps and see whatever you're interested in. And I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Everyone. Welcome to Buildercast. I am your host Arav Behel, and today I have David with me. Hi, David. How are you doing?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Really nice to have you as well. David is a software and mobile developer, and he's the founder of Rhodes Audio. He successfully launched Rhodes Audio on Product Hunt this year, and I actually met him through Buildspace because we were in one of the same Buildspace demo days on Discord. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Buildspace was a fun 6-week thing to get through. Is that actually how you're launching this podcast? Is that right?
Yeah. I actually wanted to launch it for a very long time, but somehow you could just never find time for it, right? So I felt Build Space was like a good time to just take the plunge and start it. So
Yeah.
I was,
definitely.
yeah, I was just like understanding how do you actually just go about starting a podcast during those 6 months, and that's when I got my first guest as well. And yeah, this is the second episode now, and I'm really just enjoying talking to interesting folks like you.
Yeah, sounds great. Definitely glad to be here.
Did you did you build Rhodes Audio during Buildspace completely, or were you started from earlier as well?
Yeah, actually, I built it completely before Buildspace. So I was trying to use Buildspace to actually do more of like the marketing, getting users on the app and that kind of part of it. So I actually didn't really do much development during the Buildspace timeline for Rhodes. So yeah, I was mostly just focused on the marketing.
Interesting. And is Buildspace like a good medium to just go out and market the stuff that you're making?
I think like yes and no. I think it's not. Originally, I was thinking kind of along the lines of like, oh, I can get these people that are doing Buildspace to use the app and get them kind of like those could be my first customers. But
Right.
after a few weeks, I realized like that's actually not my real target market, and these
Uh-huh.
like the other people that are contributing in Buildspace like you are doing their own stuff, and my app isn't necessarily for these like builders, or that isn't really my target audience. So yeah, originally like when they said there's 70,000 people that are going to be doing Buildspace, I was like, oh cool, maybe I could get like 1,000 of those people to use the app. But yeah, then I found out pretty quickly that like again that's not my target audience. So yeah, directly no, but then indirectly yes, because you get different ideas from different people and just following different people, and as well as like I think probably the best thing with Buildspace is like that accountability aspect of it, where like every week you're showing up and you're trying to do something new or publish something new, or yeah, just keep working on your project.
Yeah, I think for me, a big thing was that I would not really share what I was doing. And sometimes because there was no real accountability that I had to anybody, I would just, I would feel that I'm doing work, but I wouldn't be doing work that would actually move the needle. And I think somehow Build Space forces you to do the work that you're afraid to do, and the work that actually just shifts the needle in your favor. And I think that's been like one of my biggest takeaways. What's been
Yeah,
yours from
definitely.
Build Space?
Kind of a similar thing. I think, yeah, probably like that accountability, keeping you like accountable, especially when you're working by yourself. That definitely always gets hard to keep up with and stay motivated. So I think it was like a motivating factor that was in it. That you see all these people posting their different videos and the different stuff they're working on, and it gets you motivated to kind of do similar stuff or keep pushing and trying new avenues of for me it was like marketing things, but yeah, just trying new stuff and publishing the journey really.
Right. And did you learn any new marketing strategies, any new insights that you have on marketing now, like having spent the last 6 weeks doing so much marketing stuff for your app?
I mean, not real. I guess yes, but nothing that was like super like a big thing that I didn't think of before. So I will say like I don't feel like I was too successful with the marketing of like my marketing efforts in that 6 weeks. So I did kind of try stuff that I had planned to try already, so it wasn't like a brand new stuff coming up. But yeah, it was, I mean, marketing is definitely hard. It's not, especially, I think especially if you haven't really done it before, like marketing as a developer especially can be very difficult because you're used to like building things and there's kind of like a right answer. There's kind of like a this works or it doesn't work, and marketing seems a little bit more, it's not so clear cut. There's no like straight direction to how to market something. And I also think it's like different depending on each product. So for instance, like your podcast, the way you would market that is probably going to be different than how I would market a mobile app. And that definitely becomes difficult as well, because even if something works for you and then you tell me about it, it might not work for me. So yeah, it's kind of just finding, I mean, I guess to really answer your question, the main thing I found or that I realized is like defining that target audience and actually like really figuring out who the user is, or find out who your ideal user is the most important step. And that's something I feel like I still don't have 100% worked out.
I'm also guessing that does evolve with time, right? Like before, like when at the time of launching, you feel that like maybe podcasters or people who listen to to any podcast could be the ideal user for roads. But maybe like once you iterate and you actually go to market, you speak to users, you actually understand that there's like this niche set of people who really like really like talking to people who might be your target audience. So I'm thinking it can also evolve as you get more experience, right? Like that could be a big thing, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely, I think, always evolving. And I think also it's like there's some stuff I was reading is like it's a good idea to start with like a really small like niche audience and really nail that and go after them. And then once you kind of get that niche down, like the example it was giving was like Amazon, this thing that I was reading, and it was like Amazon started with books and they were just books, and they dominated the book niche. And then once they successfully figured that out, then they were able to expand to like everything. And now they're basically, of course, they basically dominate in all online e-commerce, but they started with like just books. So yeah, I think like narrowing that niche down is super important. But again, it's something I'm still definitely in the process of doing.
Right. I think the things that I've read in books is like you first niche in and then you niche out. So you like try to be in a very specific niche and then serve that well. And maybe after that is when you like try to become a generalist and try to do stuff for the masses. Like I've generally heard this as good advice as gospel. Like I haven't tried it for any product of mine myself. Like I'll probably try to do that with the podcast, wherein I'll try to say that I'll try to keep this as niche as I can. And maybe later if it does well, maybe then I can try to do stuff with the masses. But I think initially it's probably easier as well to like focus on just one niche and a set of topics that you're comfortable talking about.
Yeah, definitely. But it's also like it feels like you're not doing as much as you could, or it feels sometimes like you're like leaving stuff on the table if you're
correct. Yeah,
when you do that niche down. But yeah, I think it makes sense. It does make sense. But yeah, I think it's easier said than done for sure.
Agreed, 100%. Let's now like dive slightly deeper into your journey. So I saw that you were a software developer, right? And if you're like a software developer in the States, life's pretty easy. Like, you make good money. It's quite comfortable. The hours are nice and you get paid well. So what prompted the decision to like leave that and start something of your own with one-man startup?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, well, mainly it was that I always kind of wanted to have my own business and do like work for myself and kind of have that freedom. Although as you do start to build that, you realize, I mean, yes, there is a freedom in one way, but you also end up doing like a lot. It's actually like a lot more work, and that kind of that safety net that you're talking about with like the nice pay and the nice hours actually goes away if you try and like build your own stuff, because you have to do everything or hire people or figure out financing and all of that stuff. So there's definitely a huge trade-off with that, but I think it is a bit more rewarding, at least for me, to build what you want to build, to be working on what you want to work on. And that's not to say you can't do that within another company, but yeah, I guess I always wanted to kind of try building my own thing and build my own ideas. So yeah, that I guess is what initially prompted me. I also wanted to travel more, so I felt like if I was working a full-time job, it would be a little bit more difficult to travel, and then, because there's a little bit less flexibility with even if you do work a remote job, you have like slightly less flexibility. Whereas if you're working for yourself, you kind of completely make your own hours. So that was another big contributing factor to it. But ultimately, it also, if you do have some experience working in the programming sector or in the software development, like having a software development job, you kind of know you do have that to fall back on. So for me, it was like, I can take a year, take 2 years, and go try this. And if it doesn't work out, I always can go and get another job. So in some ways, if you do get some experience up front and then go and try and do your own thing, you almost have like a safety net in that way too, that you can always kind of fall back on. Or at least that's how I see it.
So is it, let's say somebody drops out, right? And then they try to build their own thing, or somebody just tries to do their own thing right out of university. Do you think they have then lesser of a safety net because they haven't worked at like a big company before? Like, will it be probably harder for them to find a job?
Definitely. I definitely think, the path that I took, and this is what I would recommend, is, graduating from university, go get a job for 2-3 years. You'll get so much more experience with that too. When you graduate from university, you're really not a developer. You know some stuff maybe, and like you learn a couple things in class, but you really have like very little experience unless you're doing a lot of stuff already on your own. But it's not until you start working that first full-time job that you actually see how things are done, and you actually see how the development process works and how to actually build an app or a website. And then that, I think, gave me a lot more confidence that, I can build these things by myself, or I can try to start these things by myself. But yeah, I think if I initially just out of college, it would be so much more difficult, as well as financially like near impossible.
That's a good point. Now let's say that I'm somebody in university, right? I'm like a 21-year-old, whatever, and let's say I'm working on my own ideas. I built like a bunch of projects, and I want to launch them as products now. And I want to learn, how do you crack distribution, right? Like, how do you actually get people to use what you've built? What do you think is a good process for them to maybe learn that? Is it enough for it to be like a free thing that's like costing me something? And is that good enough learning of distribution, just getting users? Or is it also about, do people actually pay for this, and that's actually real learning about distribution? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's like a difficult thing to figure out and get right. And I think probably each kind of product is a little bit different. It's not, I wouldn't even say that this is something that I've fully figured out yet, but I think if you build stuff that can kind of complement different parts of other things you build, you can almost like, I guess, building like a brand, like your personal brand, that then can kind of be used to help you push out the new stuff that you get, or the new stuff that you build. So for example, if you have like a nice Twitter following, and then you build a new app, and you can share that app with your Twitter following, and that can get you your first initial users, and then from there you can kind of see how those people are using that new app, and then decide if you want to monetize it or just get users. I will say though, like in some of the past apps I've made, I have tried to put like the monetization features in the first version, whether that be through like advertising or even in-app purchases. And looking back on it, it was like a wasted effort to some degree, because the apps never ended up getting a lot of users. So it would have been better to kind of launch it as fast as possible, which I feel like is basically like a cliche now, like launch as fast as possible. But it really is something to keep. There's a reason everyone says that, because it does, like once you do launch a little late, you realize like, I should have launched this a month ago or 2 months ago and started getting users that way, because it is the most important thing. You need to get users before you can monetize, because you can have this app that has all these great in-app purchases, but if there's no users using the app, it doesn't even matter.
So then it only perhaps makes sense to think about monetization once you have like a good amount of users who you feel are like consistently using this app, and it's probably a better idea to then think about monetization. It's futile to think about monetization before that.
Yeah, that's kind of where my mind is now with it, especially with Roads. Like Roads right now is completely free, and the goal is just to get like a nice amount of daily active users, and then kind of figure out what those people are asking for, and almost like builds the monetization features based on almost like user requests. So
it makes sense. So let's say like some Rose user says that build this in, and you're like, well, this would take time to build, so I'll just put that as a premium feature.
exactly, yeah, that's like my strategy currently.
That's quite
so,
smart. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it would. I think it's going to work out better than me kind of guessing at what people would want to pay for. So yeah, if everyone's asking for a certain feature, then there's a high likelihood that they'd actually pay for that as well.
I actually didn't think of it like that, because in my head it would always be me thinking from the shoes of the user and being like, well, what would I pay for? And then sort of trying to optimize like that, because I think a lot of times, maybe this is just a me thing, but I would try to like put myself in the user's shoes, especially if it's something that I would use myself. And then I think that creates this bias in my head wherein that just gets more weightage than actually like what other people might be saying. So I think disconnecting yourself from that could also be so important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely hard. That's another hard thing to do, like to realize that like you're not necessarily the user, or like your use case is not the same as how most people are using your product, and then like really understand how people are using the product and what they want out of it.
That's like a journey in itself, I think. Like, how are people actually using it? Because you need to then be continuously talking to people and trying to understand, well, how do you really use it? And you can only talk to so many people. And at scale, I think that could actually be so difficult to do.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. It's like a full-time job in itself in a lot of ways.
Let's dive deeper into one-man startup. Do you have a team that sort of works with you on this now, or is it still you? Is it still a one-man army?
Yeah, it's still just me. Actually, One Man Startup kind of started, kind of what I was saying before. My idea was to almost use it as like a marketing vehicle when I was building an app. This was several years ago. It actually probably started in 2019, so that's like 5 years ago. And by it starting, I mean the YouTube channel. So my idea was I'll build this app, kind of do the build in public on YouTube. And then once the app is built, then the people that were watching the videos would be more likely to download the app. That was kind of my theory. But then it was like the same thing as I was saying before, is like the people that were watching those videos were not the target customer. The people that were watching the videos were developers. And the target customer for that app was it was like a travel budget app that I was doing originally. And so they're not, I mean, there maybe was a little bit of overlap, but it was not a good marketing channel to actually get users for a travel budget app. But then One Man Startup, like the YouTube channel, actually kind of it kind of became its own thing. And then I did kind of run with that. And I still do make videos, but it's definitely not my top priority. It comes and goes. Like sometimes I'll do like a new series and then step away from it for a while and come back to it. But doing YouTube is a lot of work. And I think especially in like the tech niche, like such a small niche, especially now with like ChatGPT and these AI tools, that it seems like YouTube tutorial videos are becoming less viewed. At least that's what I've noticed with my channel. And even personally, like I don't watch as many programming tutorials now, which I think partly maybe comes with more experience. I find I prefer to read blogs or even use some AI tools. So I think it's just changed. Like the landscape is changing with that type of education.
Interesting.
But,
I'm still in the learning phase, so I still like to watch YouTube videos. Like sometimes I'll read documentation, but then like something will get complex, so I will like try to look at some video and see somebody explaining it. Like I just like that format. But I think it's also a question of experience, right? Like you have been doing this for a long time now. So it's probably a lot easier for you to just read through documentation and just figure stuff out like that.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that for sure. Because when you can watch someone do it exactly, it's nice you almost pick up on things that you can't read in a blog, because you're like, oh, they clicked that thing, or they did that like little shortcut, that then you kind of pick those things up along the way, which is definitely valuable. And I mean, I definitely watched a ton of programming tutorials on YouTube. Throughout programming journey.
And we should also touch on personal brand for a bit, because it's almost as if one man startup was meant to be a marketing vehicle for the apps that you were launching. So it was almost meant as a personal brand wherein you could just use it as a marketing channel. But there could always be this question of, let's say if you're just trying to build a brand for yourself, or you're trying to build an audience so that when you put stuff out, there's already like some people who can watch it. But you have, I think, little control over who actually watches you. Like you could like make stuff in a niche, but you can never really be sure who your main audience is. And I think it's difficult to predict what you'll build in the future, because we as humans are very bad at predicting the future. How do we make sure that there's like a nice overlap between like who are the people who are watching us and what we are building? And should that be a big consideration for what we're building, as to we should keep in mind who our audience is and build according to that?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say, like you never really know, I guess, as you're saying, who the audience is going to be. But if you're making, I guess you do have some control over it based on the content that you put out. So
Yeah.
for example, like with the one-man startup, it's mostly all Flutter tutorials. So now that, the channel is mostly Flutter content, and that now became the niche. That was never actually the original intention. The intention was to be more of like a general startup and business building, app building channel. But then once I saw that the Flutter stuff was taking off, I kind of doubled down on that and just kept going with the Flutter programming. I have tried to like move the channel back to or more towards like a more general purpose startup channel, but those videos didn't do well.
Right.
So it is. I think on YouTube it's very hard. I think it's a little bit easier on maybe like X or even Instagram to be more of a general purpose niche. But yeah, YouTube seems to like just one topic for the channel. And then yeah, it definitely can like ruin your brand to some degree. If you want your brand to be one thing and then you end up becoming this other niche thing, and you want to switch it, it can be very difficult or impossible to the point where it's not even worth it.
Yeah, I think like the algorithm gods can be very brutal like that. Like you try to switch on to something that you want to do, but if you're only getting views on Flutter, it's almost like forcing you to just make stuff on that, and that ultimately ends up becoming a niche, even if you want to perhaps do something different.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not to say you can't switch. It's just if you do switch or try to switch, you have to be willing to basically take like several months of just getting no views, or like you're basically like starting over to some degree, and you'll probably lose a lot of subscribers. But then it'll make room for like a new type of subscriber. So yeah, I think it all just depends on what you're interested in, and if you're making content of stuff that you're interested in, then it's, I think, ultimately not a bad thing. Like I'm not disappointed or upset that the Flutter stuff has become the niche, because I do build my apps in Flutter, and I'm interested in that topic, so it's okay for me that became the niche of it. But yeah, it definitely wasn't the initial intention.
Yeah, sometimes like YouTube takes you wherever it wants you to go.
Yeah, exactly. Which is interesting, because it's like it kind of tells you what kind of channel to be if you listen to it. If you like follow what it promotes. But I think that's probably how the best channels actually take off, is by making content that is resonating with people, and then just keep making that kind of content. Where it becomes a problem is if it's content that you don't really want to make, then it feels like a job,
Yeah. Then it's almost like a chore that you need to do. And probably at that point, it's probably not worth it if you're not enjoying doing it.
Yeah, that definitely happens to me. Like sometimes I'll try to upload every week, or at times I'll try to upload every week, and then it becomes like it is difficult to stay on a schedule like that. So I just stop for certain amounts of times, and then I come back, and it doesn't really. I don't feel the need to like put up a video that's like, oh, I'm stepping away from YouTube, because my channel is pretty small, so it's. I don't know, I just go away for a while and then come back with new videos, and no one really notices, So it's kind of, I think
Do you have that banner on YouTube, new videos every week?
I
On
don't
your
know. I don't
Okay.
put that.
Then it's
Yeah.
good. Like
Yeah,
my
exactly.
sister had that banner the entire time and she hasn't uploaded in like 2 years now, but she still has that.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think most people notice, or the people that do notice, they're like your real dedicated fans. So they, I
Right.
think, also get it to some degree, and they're like, oh yeah, they're busy, they aren't uploading, but then when you do upload, they're just happy that you uploaded something. So
Yeah.
so
That's
yeah,
like such a heartwarming feeling though. Like, people want to watch the stuff that you're putting out. I think better than that, like people actually validating the stuff that you're putting out.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely a great feeling, and especially like if you get a nice comment in the video or something or anything like that, it's definitely a nice feeling.
Yeah. And let's talk about building products because you're like a builder yourself and you like build products from scratch. I think in Buildspace, you were saying that you enjoy building stuff more than marketing stuff. So you're more on the builder side of things. What do you think is the ideal way to actually go step by step in the building journey? So I think the first part is to actually just know how to code and be able to know like the tech stack based on what you want to build. Like if it's a website, know web dev. If it's an app, know what stack you want to build on, whether it's Swift or in Flutter, whatever. So there's that. Then the next part of the puzzle, I think, is sort of finding an audience, trying to find users there and seeing if you have product market fit to some degree, trying to market it as much as you can. And the next piece of that puzzle is monetization, I think. I just want your opinion on the journey taking your product to life and actually making money off of making products for a living, which is what most indie hackers end up doing. And I recently saw this on Twitter, wherein you've got people who making like $7,000-8,000 a month, just like having some SaaS tools, and they have a bunch like this, and then it's almost as if they're working on autopilot. So if you know some stuff about that world, I'm not too familiar. I like very recently got to know about that world. So if you could share some stuff from there, that'd be very cool to know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can give you my opinion. I'm definitely not one of those indie devs that's making like 70K a month or actually anything close to
70.
that.
Okay.
So, but yeah, actually, I pretty much make most of my money through like freelance work. So
Mm-hmm.
none of my actual indie apps or projects have really taken off yet.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that caveat. But I don't think, I guess the order you were saying, I don't think is necessarily needs to be the order that you go in when you're building something. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I have read several marketing business books that talk about, getting the customer first before building anything. And that's, I think, also very difficult to do. But that for sure makes sense. Like if you could get people to pay you before you even build something, that's obviously great. But I think that's more difficult. There's also like you have to think of like what your goal is. So is your goal to learn how to program? Because if that's the goal, then you can just build something and start building something, and you almost like don't care if it becomes a successful product. You're more just looking to figure out how to build an app or figure out how to build a website. So I think with my first couple projects, it was more along that mentality, and that's something I would probably recommend to anyone that wants to even do software development as a career. Even if you're still in university or just out of university, I would recommend like building a website. If you want to be a web developer, build a website, or if you want to be a mobile app developer, build a to-do list mobile app. Like build something that's a little bit more difficult, but still there's enough resources online that you can easily watch and figure it out for free. And then from there, yeah, then I think you can move into the space of where you kind of build something even more unique. And then I feel like those SaaS products that you're talking about where people are making a ton of money, those are never that person's first product.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised. I mean, I think most of them don't claim that they are, but they've probably built 5, 10 other small SaaS products that failed. So you kind of almost have to, I mean, that's the other like, cliche thing, like fail a bunch or like fail fast and all of that. But it is true because if you don't know how to build a website, you have to go build a bad website first, and then build your next website, and it'll be a little better, and then keep improving from there. So yeah, I think the order though of how you do those things does depend on your goals. And if your goal is to do like an indie SaaS product, I don't know the quickest way. I guess I don't know the quickest way to get to that profitability. But it does seem like just trying to build stuff is useful. It could also be, I think, beneficial to like partner with someone who has more of a strength on that side. But that's not to say that a developer can't do it, because I think the developer can figure that stuff out as well if they want to.
The insight that I actually found there was that just having some hard skills, because you actually had like real world work experience wherein you had worked with a bunch of companies for 2-3 years. I think it just gives you a lot more confidence as well that you have the skills to actually just go out there and make money as well. Because now, if you like ever feel like you need some liquid money, you can go out and just do freelance projects for people. So it just gives you a lot more flexibility, even if you're trying to do your own stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And if you even working at a company, especially like if you work at a smaller company or even another startup, some of the skills you'll learn there are going to only improve your odds of building your own startup. And I would also say, like, from my experience working at some smaller companies, you kind of start to realize that everyone, like, there aren't these like gods of marketing or gods of software development.
Mm-hmm.
They're just other people who have a little bit more experience than you and have tried a couple other things and know, with their experience, they know a couple things that aren't going to work, and they know a couple things that do work, and then they can make those decisions a little quicker. But they're not. It's just a matter of like having a little bit more experience. I still don't feel like I've learned everything, and I think that's going to be. I think that's a cool thing to realize. Like, even going and working with a company, it's like, oh, like everyone here is still kind of figuring it out to some degree, and then that kind of gives you like the freedom to go figure out different things yourself as well, or at least it did for me.
Very cool. And do you use AI in your workflow today? Like when you're writing code for apps, do you use like ChatGPT, Claude? Like, what's your AI workflow like?
Yeah, I use ChatGPT quite a bit. I would say I use it more for like the marketing stuff, although maybe that's only because I've been doing the marketing stuff more recently. But it's very good for coming up with ideas and even rewriting things in a way that sounds better. So actually in ChatGPT, I set up like one of those custom GPTs and basically told it all about roads. So it knows all about the app and kind of like the marketing goals for roads. Yeah. So I can sometimes, like, for example, if I'm filling out something for Product Hunt, or when I was filling out like the submission for Product Hunt, I was using ChatGPT to help me craft those 2-sentence remarks and like building out that kind of stuff. I don't think it's definitely a good tool to help speed up the process, but you still need to be proofreading and using it more as a tool, using it more as like a inspiration for ideas. And then for programming as well, it's definitely very useful. I find like Roads, the backend for Roads is a Django app, and I find it very useful with Django questions and doing like backend. I don't find it as useful for the Flutter stuff, but I think that maybe it doesn't have as much understanding of Flutter as it does for maybe some older frameworks like Django, or even like JavaScript frameworks that have been around a little longer. So there's that, and also maybe ChatGPT isn't the best programming companion. I know it's the only one really that I've used, but I've heard there's other ones that are better, that kind of like link right into your code base and make it even easier.
Yeah, but I think one thing that I've sort of realized with LLMs is almost like it's like a smart intern, but it can perhaps only supplement you if you perhaps know exactly what you want, and you can like understand if it actually hallucinated in some shape or form and completely screwed something up. So if you're not able to proofread and see, does this make sense on your own? I think that could be a big limitation, because sometimes I try to use code with ChatGPT about stuff that I haven't really experimented with myself at all. So let's say I perhaps what should I say? Let's say I haven't used Django. Let's say, right? I haven't used it much, and I want to use it on the back end, as you said. And I ask it, well, can you make this? And I just copy paste whatever it gave me. And if I'm trying to debugging after that, I think that makes the workflow a lot longer. And sometimes, like, I've actually tried to do that, wherein I'm not really sure what it's saying, but I am just trying to understand on the fly myself and trying to do something with it. But I think that's also a long process wherein it will make mistakes, then you're trying to debug stuff on your own. So I think the traditional approach of actually knowing the fundamentals yourself is still perhaps as important. Like, I think that still hasn't gone away.
Yeah, definitely. But I do. I mean, it's a great tool for sure because you can also have it explain things to you, which is really nice. So
Yeah.
sometimes I'll run across a bit of code and I'll just ask it, what is this doing? And it'll break it down and explain it really nicely, which is just crazy because you get it like instantly. Whereas you could search that on Google and you can find it probably, but it's the explanation is a little bit harder to sift through.
Yeah,
Do
I
you
think-
use AI tools a lot other than ChatGPT?
Yes, so I have used Claude, I have used ChatGPT. I've also used like the open source ones with Meta, and I very briefly experimented with Mixture as well.
Claude, because I've heard a lot about Claude being like better for programming stuff, but I haven't actually really used it too deeply.
I did like it. I think like the code that it gives you is nice, and sometimes it also throws like lesser fluff at you compared to GPT-4. The way that I used to think about it for a while was that GPT-4 could sometimes be more intelligent, although like there's like a certain hype with 3.5 Sonnet on Twitter right now, wherein everybody's saying it's the best thing ever, but I think it keeps changing on Twitter. It's almost like hype cycles, and one of them's hyped for a little while, and then the other one gets hyped if they like launch a new update or something. But I think Claude's less lazy. Like I was discussing this with a couple of friends, and with GPT you'd have to say like, "Can you please send this?" And it would say, "Oh, just do this, do that," but it won't actually send the code to you. But Claude's like more hardworking like that, so it will actually send you the code, and you can just copy paste it as well. Wherein GPT
Yeah.
might say that maybe add these two lines here or something, and you're like trying to figure out where does this fit into the grand scheme of things.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. That they, it's interesting how they all work slightly differently, and it'll be, I think, as they all like advance more, it'll be cool to see how they kind of differ even more. I feel like they're going to start to differ a little bit more extremely, like the different AI models, but maybe not. Maybe they'll all kind of converge. Hard to say.
Did you actually see that the OpenAI co-founder left?
I think I did hear about that. Was that a little bit like a couple months ago or just recently?
No, just like 5 hours ago. Like John, who was the co-founder, he left for Anthropic, which is like crazy to me
Oh,
because
wow.
he left for like their biggest competitor, and he's the co-founder.
Wow, that's crazy. Wasn't there someone else that left OpenAI like maybe 2 months ago who was like one of their main developers or something?
I think one of the chief scientists. I think he also left for Anthropic. I think I
Wow,
saw
so-
it. Yeah, he like put. I think he replied on that Twitter thread, and he was like, "Nice to be working again." And I was like, "What is this? Was this all planned like a coup or something?"
Wow.
But yeah, like things
So
are going
they're all
crazy
going
because
to Anthropic.
yeah, like I think Ilya's away as well, and I think their president, I think Greg, I think he's been away on leave or something. So like, there's very little transparency as to what's really going down there. So
Oh,
yeah, like the future of AGI is in their hands, and we have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It all is like moving so fast too. Like, I don't know, how long has ChatGPT been around? Like, not even 2 years, and
Yeah, I think it
it
was.
feels like it's been
Octo-
around forever.
Yeah, actually, like I barely remember my life before it.
Yeah,
It's almost like
Yeah.
all of my recent memories are post ChatGPT.
yeah, yeah. I mean, same. Like, definitely, it's definitely helpful as like as you were saying, like a smart intern. It's for sure like a productivity boost. There's no question.
Yep. And let's talk about advice for somebody who just started building, and let's say they're still in university, they're still doing a bunch of boring courses that the university mandates them to do, and they're trying to build projects on the side. What would be your advice if you could like go back when you were also a kid in university? What would you, let's say, do differently?
Yeah, that's a great question. I sometimes think back to like university and wish I took more advantage of, I guess, of university as a whole. I guess what I mean by that is there's a lot of things outside of class that you can do within your major. Like if you're a computer science major, there's probably a lot of people that you could, yeah, I mean, you should be trying to make a lot of friends within your major and maybe trying to work with them to start building something. Not necessarily like a full startup, but yeah, maybe get a few people that you're in class with and start trying to build a website or start trying to build an app that leads to a product. And if not, then there's just experience that you gained. But in most universities, there's also like some programs like startup programs or yeah, like those kind of opportunities that are there that I think most people just kind of don't take advantage of. So yeah, if I were to go back, I would probably try and look for those kind of things more and take advantage of them more. And even talking to your professors more and kind of becoming more friends with them, I think is hugely valuable. There's a few of my professors that I do still kind of keep in touch with, but I wish I kind of did that more or had even deeper connections with some of them because they know of those kind of opportunities within the school as well, and they can help you do stuff like that. But yeah, I think also like doing a hackathon is good. Like look for hackathons in the university or if you're in a big city, there's probably hackathons or even yeah, they're pretty much all over. And now actually there's a lot online too. Mm-hmm. That could be like a fun way to kind of learn new stuff and start building stuff. But yeah, ultimately I feel like you just need to really take advantage of like the opportunity that is at the university and really try to like build something that is live. So kind of like what I was saying before, like you definitely, if you want to be a web developer, you definitely should have a live website. And especially in this day and age, like if you're going to apply for a web dev job and you don't have at least a portfolio website that's live on the internet, mm-hmm. It's going to be really, really difficult for you to get a job, I think. And that I have actually in a past job been on the hiring end of things. And I will say of the resume, the most important thing that I always looked at was what kind of live projects are there. So yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of schools now do try to do that. They try and get you to build something as like a project in class, and then you can use it in your portfolio.
That makes a lot of sense. So I think most of us at university like perhaps don't host our projects, like it's not on the web, but it's like a GitHub repo wherein all of our code is there and we just like redirect you to the repo. But I think in general it's a better idea if something is actually live on the internet and it's actually hosted. So it becomes very easy for the other person to like just go and look at what you've made. And I think as a web developer, it's very important to have a portfolio website for sure.
And especially with that, if you are trying to get a job, like 95% of the time, the initial people that are looking at your application are not going to be software developers. So they're not going to look through your GitHub and read your code. They're not going to look at that at all. And even the software developers probably aren't going to look at that too much. They might look at it a little bit, but if you have a website that looks decent, it's just so much easier for them to pass you to the next level of an interview process.
I just like launched my portfolio website like yesterday or just even today actually. I'll send you the link after this and I'll ask you to review it or something.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's talk about actually hosting something on Product Hunt. I've never done so myself, so I want to understand what that process is like. Like, what does it entail actually trying to launch something on Product Hunt? Yeah,
so I mean, I would definitely recommend it. I've launched a few products now, a few of my apps on Product Hunt. I recently just launched Roads, and it did all right. I think it was like maybe like the 16th or 17th product of the day, and on Product Hunt it's like the top 20 get like ranked, or like it'll have like the little number next to it. Mm-hmm. But it's difficult. I think now Product Hunt is kind of like gamed a little bit, where you can kind of like buy upvotes to some degree. So I think all that to say, I think it's very difficult to get like in the top 10 unless you're going to pay for upvotes. Not to say that that's my theory. I don't know if it's 100% true, but I did notice when I launched, I got a bunch of connections on LinkedIn, and people on LinkedIn were asking me, "Oh, like, do you want us to promote your product on our LinkedIn page? We have 300,000 followers, and it's only going to be like $35." And then I did notice a few of the higher up products of the day that I was launching with were on that page that was being like sold to me. I mean, yes, that could be good. It could be good to be up in the top because then more actual people can see it. But of course, it doesn't matter if you're the number one product of the day and all your upvotes were from like essentially not real users, because it really what you're trying to do is get new users with Product Hunt, get new people to use your app or your product. So I mean, with my launch, I can give you some numbers. I think I had like maybe 160 upvotes, I believe. And then of that, I got like around 60 new user accounts created on the app. So it was definitely a nice bump of users. Definitely better than any of my other marketing efforts so far. And it's free, so it's nice to just post something and then see what happens. And I guess also I got a lot of feedback from Product Hunt too. Like people were commenting, and then a lot of those users, those 60 users, did also send. I have like a little form that you can fill out on the app itself to request features, and I did get maybe like 6 or 8 feature requests that way. Which kind of comes back to what I was saying, where those feature requests will then be kind of ranked, and maybe some of those will become like premium features. So a net positive for the amount of time that I spent creating the post.
Right. So essentially, is it almost like an Instagram post wherein you're like putting screenshots about, well, this is what my product looks like, go try it out?
So the way Product Hunt works is like it's almost like a combination of Reddit and like Hacker News, if you're familiar with that. So basically, yeah, you create like a page for your product. So it'll have like the logo, the name, a one-liner, and then you can put like images. So maybe you put like 5 images of just product, kind of like Instagram posts is what work, I think, a little bit better. But yeah, essentially screenshots, or you could also put a video in there, like a demo video of your product. And then each day there's like the list, like the main page is just a list of the products that are doing the best, and you can upvote. So if you like a product, you can upvote it, and then the products that get the most upvotes are at the top, and they just kind of rank them like first down through however many there are. So yeah, it's really just like an upvoting system, but then people can also like ask you questions about your product and comment on it, and then of course like go use it.
I have never really like made one myself, so I've just like seen what it looks like from the user perspective, but I'm not really sure what all they ask you to do in the background. So I was just curious about that. Like, is it they just ask you for the one-liner? Do they ask you about what industry you're targeting, and do they like target it to some specific type of users? Like, does Product Hunt actually help you find your users as well, or it's completely up to the users to find you on Product Hunt? Is what I was curious to know.
I think it's a combination. You basically just fill out a form, so the information is pretty straightforward to give them. They do like suggest that you try and get people to upvote your thing or ask for support. So they suggest that you post on Twitter and post on your community to kind of get it started. But then I think they do kind of recommend it to some degree, because I do notice like if you click into a product on Product Hunt, it'll show you like on the side like similar products. So it does know kind of at least like similar products, and then maybe if people are looking at that product, they'll find your product. So yeah, I think they do a little bit of that. And then of course, if you're like on the top of the page for the day, you'll get a lot of because I think a lot of people just go to Product Hunt and just look at it and look for new stuff.
Like, roughly how many are launched every day?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I would guess like in the hundreds. I would say at least 100 are launched every day. So you can go. They also have a way that you can almost like pre-launch, and you can go and look at the pre-launch ones. Yeah, maybe it's like 50 to 100. I think it depends on the day. But then I would recommend doing the pre-launch thing if you are going to launch on Product Hunt, because you can get some people to start following the product before it's really launched, and then when you do launch it, ideally you just get those upvotes initially. But yeah, again, I think the upvotes are somewhat.
It's about game, you're saying, right? Because
somewhat
you can you can get upvotes by like going to these marketing channels with like tons of followers, and you pay them something, and then like people just go and upvote it. So it's not really real users. It's not really real traction. It's just a bunch of random people at times as well.
Yeah, but that's not to say that couldn't help you get real traction. Like, for example, if you pay like $50 and then you're in the top 5. Now that you're in the top 5, a bunch of other people will just see it, and then you can get real users. So it's a fine line. I've never tried the paid upvotes on Product Hunt or paid support, but yeah, it could be something that I might consider on a next one. Because once you launch once, you can actually launch several times. So, for instance, like Rhodes Audio has like the company page on Product Hunt, and then it just has the initial launch. But if I add like monetization features, for example, I could do another launch on Product Hunt, and it would be like highlighting those specific features, and then it would be a whole another cycle of it to get new users.
Be like a completely new launch, or would it show that you launched before and this is a follow-up version of that launch?
It would kind of be a combination of both. Like on the homepage feed, like if it started ranking high, it would look similar. It would look like a new launch essentially. But then if you click into it, then you go to the company page. You can look at like the past launches. So a lot of companies have done several launches on Product Hunt, but you don't really know. Like you don't really notice unless you go look for it.
Right. So you essentially keep launching till the time you become like number 1 on Product Hunt.
Yeah, exactly. I think for any new big update you do to your product, you should just launch again on Product Hunt. Probably, personally, I would probably limit it to like 4 a year, so like maybe one every 3 months, do a new launch at maximum. But yeah, there's really no reason not to, because the worst case scenario is you just don't get upvoted at all, and nothing happened. You just posted it like how you post any social media post that doesn't do well.
Yeah, like if it doesn't do well, like there's not a lot of downside, right? Like it's not as if something goes wrong if it doesn't do well. It's still all good. Yeah,
it's really only upside. And like I said, I mean, in that launch I did, it was like 60 new users, which at this early stage of the app is good. It's like a nice amount for sure for one day.
Yeah, 100%. Like for one day, for like roughly a social media worth of effort, it's like a big upside there, I think, for sure. And like now these 60 users can, they'll do, if they like the product, there'll be word of mouth, there'll be other stuff, they might post about it, there could be referral things that you could do. So it really does help.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I wouldn't overthink Product Hunt either, because I think that could happen as well. I mean, I kind of did a little bit. Like I waited a while to launch on Product Hunt, but yeah, just once you have like a nice version of your product, just launch it, and then you can always launch again, which is the nice thing.
Right. Cool. I think that is actually most of my questions. Is there something that you'd like to talk about for a bit?
I mean, how have you found the podcast? Like how the process of podcasting going? I mean, I guess this is only the second episode. So what are your initial thoughts of starting a podcast?
So my thoughts around podcasting are that for roughly like the past 4 years, I'd actually been like too scared to start it. Like I always just enjoy talking to interesting people, and it would be something that I would just naturally see myself do, and I really enjoyed it. Like after having a good conversation with somebody, I would be a lot more energized than before, and I think I feed off of other people's energies and vibes. So it would just be something that I genuinely really enjoyed, and I felt that the way that I think about podcasting right now is it's like you and I are having a conversation. It's not like an interview. We're just having a normal conversation, and anybody else who's listening to it, they're like in the same room, and they can also like maybe learn some stuff. Maybe because I'll learn stuff from you. Maybe like magically I say something and somebody can learn from that. So I think it's just getting people to be a part of that conversation and like trying to help people maybe, but also like, learning for myself. And I'm just genuinely curious about some of this stuff, and that's why it excites me. I think I'm very curious about most stuff, so it's like a learning experience for me, and I just genuinely really enjoy doing it. It's only the second episode, so I'm still trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. Like, how do I make it as impactful as possible? How do I make it a win for the other person, like my guests who are there? How do I make it a good value proposition for them as well as for myself? So I think finding that sweet spot is also something that needs to be given some thought. But I think I'll figure it out as I go, step by step. A big mistake that I used to make was before like even I got to a stage, I would start thinking about a problem that doesn't even exist right now. So how do I think about branding this or marketing this? Like, how do people do brand stuff? And I'm like, bro, you've done like 2 episodes. Like, no, those are not like real problems right now. It's just so much more important to like focus on the problem at hand and not really figure out about what problems can come in the future. I just think it's a lot more stoic, and it feels a lot more nicer to just be like living in the moment and tackle the problems as they come. So I think that's where I'm at with podcasting. I'm really enjoying it. So I'm trying to figure out I just need to consistently do this even when I'm at university, because I'm a double major and I try to overload every sem. So it does get hectic at times. So I just want to consistently do this every weekend. That's where my head is at right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I feel like it can only improve, right? Like once you start, it could just only get better.
Yeah, hopefully, if I get worse after my 50th episode, it's just sad. Like everybody's saying, bro, you were so much better in your first episode. What happened?
Yeah. I feel like that's rare though. It's rare to not improve and get better, but yeah, awesome. I mean, best of luck, and I'll definitely be following it and listening to your next ones.